Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnu Paramahansa Parabhakacharya Srita Shri Shriman, His Divine Living Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jayam Vishnu Paramahansa Parabhakacharya Srita Shri Shriman, His Divine Living Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Anantakoi Vaishnavinda Ki. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki. Pramashika Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishvadaya Krishna Prasadaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Jinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bhajanini Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paskatya Desatanini Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Tutirjayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Naishta Preshu Apadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naiskati. By regular attendance in class of the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental song, is established as a irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agena Timirandasya Gena Gena Salakaya Jaksun Milatanyena Tasmai Shri Karave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadanmayam Dadanti Swavadantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jakapate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vindavanishre Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Dhruvyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai. So today, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 1st chapter, verse 42. Yato yato davati daiva kotitam mano vikarattamakam apapanchasu guneshu maya rochite sudehyaso prapadyamana sahatena jayate yato yato daivati davait koditam mano vikarattamakam aparanchaso gunesu maya rochite sudehyaso prapadyamanaha sahatena jayate. Chant. Yato yato davati daiva koditam Mako vikaratmaka mapakanchasi. Yato yato davati daiva koditam prapadyamana sahatena jayate. Kapajamana sahatena jayate. Yato yato dai vataditam. Vaishnavis? Yata yata, from one place to another, or from one position to another. Davati speculates. Daivakoditam, impelled by accident or deliberation. Mana, the mind. Vikara atmakam, changing from one type of thinking, feeling and willing to another. Apa, at the end, he obtains a mentality. Panchasu, at the time of death, when the material body turns totally into matter. Ganeshu, the mind, not being liberated, becomes attached to the material qualities. Maya Roshiteshu, where the material energy creates a similar body. Dehi, the spirit soul, who accepts such a body. Asal, he, papada manaha, being surrendered to such a condition. Saha, with tena, a similar body. Jayate, takes birth. Srila Prabhupada's purport. At the time of death, according to the thinking, feeling, and willing of the mind, which is involved in fruitive activities, one receives a particular body. In other words, the body develops according to the activities of the mind. Changes of body are due to the flickering of the mind, for otherwise the soul could remain in its original spiritual body. Let's repeat this. At the time of death, according to the thinking, feeling, and willing of the mind, which is involved in fruitive activities, one receives a particular body. In other words, the body develops accordingly to the activities of the mind. Changes of body are due to the flickering of the mind. For otherwise the soul could remain in its original spiritual body. Srila Prabhupada's purport. one can very easily understand that the mind is constantly flickering, changing in the quality of its thinking, feeling, and willing. This is explained by Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita 6:34. Cha chalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadurham tasyaham nirgraham manye vayor eva sudukshkarmam. The mind is chanchala, flickering, and it changes very strongly. Therefore, Arjuna admitted that controlling the mind is not at all possible. This would be as difficult as controlling the wind. For example, if one were in a boat moving according to the wind on a river or the sea, and the wind were uncontrollable, the tilting boat would be very much disturbed and extremely difficult to control. It might even capsize. Therefore, in the Bhava Samudra, the ocean of mental speculation, the transmigration to different types of bodies, one must first control the mind. By regular practice, one can control the mind, and this is the purpose of the yoga system, Abhasya Yoga Yutena, Bhagavad Gita 8:8. But there is a chance of failure with the yoga system, especially in this age of Kali, because the yoga system uses artificial means. If the mind is engaged in bhakti yoga, however, by the grace of Krishna, one can very easily control it. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Eva Kevalam in the Adi Leela 17:21. One should chant the holy name of the Lord constantly, for the holy name of the Lord is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Person. By chanting the Hare Krishna mantra constantly, one can fix the mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo, and in this way achieve the perfection of yoga. Otherwise, the flickering mind will hover on the platform of mental speculation for sense enjoyment, and one will have to transmigrate from one body to another, because the mind is trained only in relation to the material elements, or in other words, to sense gratification, which is false. Maya sukyam brahm udvahato vimudhan. Bhagavad Gita 7:943. Rascals, vimudhan, being controlled by mental speculation, make huge arrangements by which they to enjoy life temporarily. But they must give up the body at the time of death. When everything is taken away by Krishna's external energy, mucha sarva haraschayam cham. At that time, whatever one has created in this life is lost, and one must automatically accept a new body by the force of material nature. In this life, one may have constructed a very tall skyscraper, but in the next life, because of one's mentality, one may have to accept a body like that of a cat, a dog, a tree, or perhaps a demigod. Thus, the body is offered by the laws of material nature. Karanam gunasango shadsadasad yoni janmasu. Bhagavad Gita 13:22. The spirit soul takes birth in higher and lower species of life only because of his association with the three qualities of material nature. Urvam gachati sattvastaha madhyatistanti rajasaha jagantaya gunavitistaha ahadho gatanti tamasaha. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Bhagavad Gita 14:18. In conclusion, the Krishna conscious movement offers the topmost welfare activity for human society. The saner section of human society must therefore take this movement very seriously for the benefit of all humanity. To save oneself from the repetition of birth and death, one must purify his consciousness. Sarvopati virmuktam tatparvanena nirmalam. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 19:170. One must be freed from all designations. I am American, I am Indian, I am this, I am that, and come to the platform of understanding that Krishna is the original master and we are his eternal servants. When the senses are purified and engaged in Krishna's service, one achieves the highest perfection. Hrishikesha, Hrishikesha Sevanam, Bhaktir Uchate, in the Madhya Lila 19:170. The Krishna conscious movement is a movement of Bhakti Yoga, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 6:254. By following the principles of this movement, one becomes disassociated from material mental concoctions and is established on the original platform of the eternal relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead as servant and master. This, in summary, is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. It's such a wonderful section we're in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're discussing the mind. And we had a really nice discussion yesterday on how powerful the mind is. And hopefully today we can develop additional understanding of the powerful mind and how we can control it. We know the mind is flickering. Arjuna explains that in the Bhagavad Gita. And the example that Srila Prabhupada gave us in this about the boat on the water is such an excellent example, because many of us, imagine, have been on a boat that's being blown by the wind, and how disconcerting that can be and how disturbing that can be. And similarly, we all have this mind that at one moment can take us from a completely peaceful situation into a very disturbed, agitated condition. So the best way to fight an opponent is to understand that opponent. And Srila Prabhupada is deepening our understanding in this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam of what the mind is. The Nectar of Devotion also explains the mind is like a child. I really like this example personally because I had 3 children and I have a mind. But have you ever tried to tell a child, just sit there, be quiet, hold still? The child can't hold still. It'll move its legs, its feet, its hands, it'll shake. And eventually it'll get up and start running around the room even more frantically than before. And similarly, this is the mind. We can't control the mind just by dictating to it. Just be quiet. Just stop. It's impossible. With a child, the psychologists recommend regularity is very helpful for controlling a child. And similarly, Srila Prabhupada recommends for us regularity is very important for controlling the mind. So by following this process of regularly chanting and attending the temple programs, this will help us in controlling the mind. And then we can use trickery with children, and we use trickery with our mind. So the mind likes to engage in sense gratification. It's a proponent of the senses. And so we engage the mind in taking prasadam. We engage the mind in hearing pastimes about Krishna, and this way it becomes interested and satisfied. And in this way we let go of some of our anarthas. The influence, the mind is influenced by the intelligence. And similarly, a child is influenced by maybe a good nanny or a good uncle, good aunt. And so we need to feed the intelligence with all the right understandings. And in this way, the mind will become more pacified and easily controlled. If anyone's ever driven from Delhi to Vrindavan late at night, if you arrive in Delhi late at night and there's a taxi waiting for you, you don't know the condition of that taxi driver's, how long he's been up, how long he's been driving, what condition he'll be when he takes you to Vrindavan. So as a passenger, and Prabhupada uses that example in the Bhagavad Gita, the intelligence is like a passenger in this vehicle, and the mind is the driver. And if the driver has not had enough sleep or is not in good condition, it could have an accident and drive you off the road. So the intelligence needs to be conscious of what the mind is doing and where it's going and what it's thinking. There's a very nice story in the Srimad Bhagavatam told by Lord Krishna to his dear friend Uddhava. And it's a story about a mendicant sannyasi who was treated very badly by some evil-minded people. But he showed the utmost tolerance and sobriety, even though terrible things happened to him. This is 1123 in the Srimad Bhagavatam. In his younger years, this Abanti Brahmana, he was from Abanti, he was a very wealthy Brahmana. He had an agricultural business, he was a merchant, but he was miserly and he was greedy and prone to anger, and consequently he caused a very unhappy situation in his home life, an unhappy situation for his family, his children, and his servants. So much so that they were deprived of a happy life. And so much so, as we understand from Manu Samhita, that harsh words are spoken in the home, that the goddess of fortune will leave. And consequently, this Brahmin lost everything. He lost his wife, he lost his sons and daughters and servants. Nobody wanted anything more to do with him. He lost all his money due to the influence of time and providence in his karma. And when this happened, because of his spiritual life, he had a strong spiritual upbringing. He was able to sit down and meditate and reflect on what was happening. And all the years he spent developing these material opulences, he realized that he didn't use his money for anything of any religious nature. He never donated his money. And consequently, along with all his wealth, other things developed in his heart. There are 15 items that developed in his heart, and that was theft, violence, speaking lies, duplicity, lust, anger, perplexity, pride, quarreling, enmity, faithlessness, inappropriate association with women, gambling, and intoxication. When this meditation arose in his heart and he was able to start to understand his situation, he also started detaching from the situation and developing renunciation. And he realized that somehow or another he must have pleased Lord Hari, because all this was taking place, and he felt very grateful and very blessed. And so he decided to take sannyas, and he decided to take the example of Maharaj Katavanga. Now, Maharaj Katavanga, as you will remember, he was a great kshatriya who fought for the demigods. And he fought so long and so hard. They gave him a benediction, whatever you want, tell us, we'll give it to you. And he asked to know, how long am I going to live? And it just so happened he was only going to live for a moment longer. So they told him, which was actually very intelligent of him to want to know this, because he immediately surrendered everything to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this Brahmana, he decided to surrender completely to Krishna. And he took sannyas and he began to wander from village to village, begging for his maintenance. But along the way, rough, cruel, evil people who saw this humble mendicant began to torment him in many different ways. They took his water pot, his clothes, his danda, even his japa beads. And when he was sitting on the bank of the river, about to take the food that he begged, they passed urine on it. They spit on his head and criticized him, insulted him, hit him with sticks. They even imprisoned him with chains and kept him like an animal. The amazing thing was he was not disturbed. He was sober, and he humbly maintained his vows. And he created this song that he would sing all along the way. And this is his song. I'll read it. The Brahmana said, "These people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Neither are the demigods, my own body, the planets, my past work or time. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life. The powerful mind actuates the functions of the material modes, from which evolve different kinds of material activities in the modes of goodness, ignorance, and passion. From the activities in each of these modes develop the corresponding status of life. Although present along with the struggling mind within the material body, the supersoul is not endeavoring, because he is already endowed with transcendental enlightenment. Acting as my friend, he simply witnesses from his transcendental position, I, the infinitesimal spirit soul, on the other hand, have embraced this mind, which is the mirror reflecting the image of the material world. Thus I have become engaged in enjoying objects of desire and am entangled due to contact with the modes of nature. Charity, prescribed duties, observance of major and minor regulative principles, hearing from scriptures, pious work, and purifying vows all have their final aim at subduing the mind. Indeed, concentration of the mind on the Supreme is the highest yoga. If one's mind is perfectly fixed and pacified, then tell me, what need does one have to perform ritualistic charity and other pious rituals? And if one's mind remains uncontrolled, lost in ignorance, then of what use are these engagements for him? At least we have the holy name. Because even if the mind is agitated, we can still chant the holy name, and it will have an extreme benefit for us. All the senses have been under the control of the mind since time immemorial, and the mind himself never comes under the sway of any other. He is stronger than the strongest, and his godlike power is fearsome. Therefore, anyone who can bring the mind under control becomes the master of all senses. And we've seen this example with athletes. We've seen athletes perform amazing feats beyond what the physical body can actually do, because their mind is focused on a goal and driven by that goal. So he continues, failing to conquer this irrepressible enemy, the mind, who urges are intolerable, who torments the heart, many people are completely bewildered and create useless quarrel with others. Thus they conclude that other people are either their friends, their enemies, or parties indifferent to them. Persons who identify with this body, which is simply the product of the material mind, are blinded by their intelligence, thinking in terms of I and mine. Because of their illusion of this is I, but that is someone else, they wander in endless darkness. If you say that these people are the cause of my happiness and distress, then where is the place of the soul in such a conception? This happiness and distress pertain not to the soul, but to the interactions of material bodies. If someone bites his tongue with his own teeth, at whom can he become angry in his suffering? If you say that the demigods who rule the bodily senses cause suffering, still, how can such suffering apply to the spirit soul? This acting and being acted upon are merely interactions of the changeable senses and presiding deities. When one limb of the body attacks another, with whom can the person in the body be angry? If the soul himself were the cause of happiness and distress, then we could not blame others, since happiness and distress would be simply the nature of the soul. According to this theory, nothing except the soul actually exists, and if we were to perceive something besides the soul, that would be illusion. Therefore, since happiness and distress do not actually exist in this concept, why become angry at oneself or others? And if we examine the hypothesis that the planets are the immediate cause of suffering and happiness, then also where is the relationship with the soul who is eternal? After all, the effect of the planet applies only to things that have taken birth. Expert astrologers have moreover explained how the planets are only causing pain to each other. Therefore, since the living entity is distinct from these planets and from the material body, again, whom should he vent his anger? If we assume that fruit of work is the cause of happiness and distress, we still are not dealing with the soul. The idea of material work arises when there is a spiritual actor who is conscious and a material body that undergoes the transformation of happiness and distress as a reaction to such work. Since the body has no life, it cannot be the actual recipient of happiness and distress, nor can the soul, who is the ultimate, complete spiritual and aloof from the material body. Since karma thus has no ultimate basis in either the body or the soul, at whom can one become angry? If we accept time as a cause of happiness and distress, that experience still cannot apply to the spirit soul, since time is manifestation of the Lord's spiritual potency, and the living entities are also expansion of the Lord's spiritual potency, manifesting through time. Certainly a fire does not burn its own flames or sparks, nor does the cold harm its own snowflakes or hail. In fact, the spirit soul is transcendental and beyond the experience of material happiness and distress. At whom, therefore, should we become angry? The false ego gives shape to illusory material existence and thus experiences material happiness and distress. The spirit soul, however, is transcendental to material nature. He can never actually be affected by material happiness and distress in any place, under any circumstances, or by the agency of any person. A person who understands this has nothing whatsoever to fear from any material creation. I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nescience by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. This was approved by the previous acharyas who were fixed in firm devotion to the Lord, Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Lord Krishna, he comments, thus being detached upon the loss of his property, this sage gave up his moroseness, left his home, taking sannyas, and began to travel about the earth. Even when insulted by foolish rascals, he remained unswerved from his duty and chanted this song. No other force besides his own mentality, confusion, makes the soul experience happiness and distress. His perceptions of friends, neutral parties, and enemies, and the whole material life he builds around this perception are simply created out of ignorance. So for a devotee, what do we have to be in anxiety about? We can understand who our dearmost friend is, who the Supreme Controller is, and what he says in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 18, verse 66. Anyone know that verse? I'm sure you do. Sarvam Darvam Jaya Mam Ekam Sarvam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Prapavedyo Mokshajami Mai Sarja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So, I think we could end here today. There, any suggestions or reflections or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Well, since you're asking, I had a reflection. So this Brahmin, the Avanti Brahmin, and he was saying, you know, it's not this that's the cause of your suffering. It's not other people. It's not this. It's not that. It's not that. So many different things. It's the mind. But the mind is matter. It's subtle matter, but it's matter. You know, there's bhumir apanalo vayu kamano. So it's a subtle machine. The mind's not it's an inanimate object. It's not a living entity. So how is it that an inanimate object is the ultimate cause of one's happiness or distress? I'd like to suggest, and this is my reflection, and I can be, deflected off my reflection if people think it's incorrect, that it's how you interact with your mind. It's the proper use or the misuse of free will, which is the ultimate cause of one's happiness, distress, suffering, bondage, or liberation in the material energy. And the mind is just like a medium, a vehicle. It's how that free will, the misuse of it or the proper use of it it's expressed through that medium. But the mind in and of itself it's inanimate. It's just subtle matter. As I said, how could it possibly be the ultimate cause of that? I think, you get the idea. And in the last statement, you read that whole song of the Avanti Brahmin, and in the very last one was that famous verse where it talks about, I think it's the sannyas mantra, which all the sannyasis are supposed to chant, I don't know, every day or 3 times a day or whatever. But he says, I'm going to just engage in devotional service, following in the footsteps of previous acharyas. I'm sure by doing this, I'm going to cross over. So he's expressing that his decision is how he's going to use his free will to engage in devotional service, and that's going to be the solution to all the problems. So that's my reflection. That it was making it sound like it's the mind was the cause of everything, but really, when I analyze it to myself, how could it be the mind? The mind is just, as I said, dead matter. It's subtle, but it's just matter. It's inanimate.
Yes. But it's because of our identity with the mind. Yes, and the mind's association with the modes of material nature.
But that happens by your choice.
Yes,
That happens
that's
by how you use your free will.
exactly a good point. It's by our choice. And sometimes our choices are so conditioned, we're not even aware of our choices. But many times we are, but we just feel we don't want to take that next step. We're attached. We're attached to our anartas. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much.